Hey everyone, Eric Thompson here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope that you are doing well as we approach number 86 on the AFI Top 100 1986's Platoon, directed by Oliver Stone and starring a lot of people, but most importantly Charlie Sheen, Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger. Suffice to say, set in 1967, Charlie Taylor, or Chris Taylor, portrayed by Charlie Sheen, volunteers to join with the United States Marine Corps. Is he in the Marines? Is he? Let's see. Let me look at my notes here. Bravo Company. So I guess just the infantry. He goes to Vietnam of his own volition and is full of dreams of patriotism and all kinds of different nationalistic feelings about the war. And the film really is about his attitude and his experience in Vietnam over the course of so many months, not over his whole tour, but really from when he hits the ground there all the way through and all the things that happen to him and to his platoon over the course of that period of time. There's just a lot that happens in this movie. A lot of character development, a lot of action, quite a bit of combat, some gore, okay? It is not apologetic for the behavior of young men and soldiers in Vietnam during wartime, and most of it certainly seems to pan out with what we understand about how the troops lived and behaved during that time. But I believe that's one of the reasons why it's on the AFI Top 100, because it approaches the Vietnam War very bravely, okay? You know, produced, filmed 20 years after the time period in which it was set. It takes a look back, an unashamed, glaring look at the war and the way that soldiers were changed. You know, some films have dealt with reactions on the home front and what was it like for people in America to go through the Vietnam War and to deal with all of those political changes and cultural changes. Well, here we pretty much just focus on Chris Taylor, on Charlie Sheen's character and his transformation, but also his platoon in general. Of course, Platoon is not the only war film that is on the AFI Top 100. Indeed, there are at least 2 more films that I know of that have to do with the Vietnam War specifically. And one of them, I'm sure you can guess which one, is actually quite high on the Top 100. And so there's plenty more to say about the Vietnam War in reviews to come. Although I'd like at least to say, I believe this film remains relevant because it looks at a certain aspect of the Vietnam War. And recently, of course, we've seen many films coming out that look at different aspects of the war in the Middle East. Really not quite the time right now to list them for you, but I'm sure that you can imagine between all the different iterations of these movies that not only pay homage to different aspects of military life or of the campaign in the Middle East, but also emotional reactions and the emotional toll and physical toll that our soldiers and their families and our country has both theoretically and literally paid for that engaged conflict. And so, of course, even before this, films about World War II, but these films especially, because you had such a war of such controversy like Vietnam, movies that take different looks at the conflict itself are noteworthy. And I believe that's why at least 3 Vietnam War films appear on the AFI Top 100, because they all look at different aspects of the war. There are a lot of themes in this film which summon different feelings and inclinations. I just would not want to spoil anything for any of you who have not seen this movie. I mentioned it to a couple people. Tori would not watch it. I think that she's seen it once. She would not watch it again. It is pretty gritty, but I feel that feeds into why it is such a worthwhile film, because there's so much to grab onto. Not only are you following the transformation of one man, of a single man, but you're learning so much about his relationship to others, his platoon, okay? Um, for me, what I resonated with strongly and recognized this most recent viewing, having seen it now, I guess 3 or 4 times, um, was the immediate division that was caused in the platoon when the 2 sergeants disagree with each other. Okay, um, the 2 staff sergeants, Barnes and Elias, and I suppose it resonated because these times are difficult for our country and for all people. There's so much division around us. And I was reminded, as I'm sure you are already thinking ahead to, it's always this very late at night. That's okay. To what Jesus said about division. The verse, the quote that everyone likes to use is, "A house divided cannot stand." Let me just flesh that out, because I think it's very interesting. It's from the Gospel of Matthew. Have Vegas put the reference up there for you. This is a quick story. Verse 22. Then a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute was brought to Jesus, and Jesus healed him, so that the mute man both spoke and saw. All the crowds were amazed and were saying, "This man cannot be the son of David, can he?" Now here they're just really saying, "Oh my gosh, is this really the one that we've been waiting for? Is this really God? Is this really the Messiah? Is this really the Son of God?" But when the Pharisees heard this, what the people were saying, they said, "This man casts out demons only by Beelzebul, the ruler of the demons." Or really saying, he's of the devil. And knowing their thoughts, Jesus said to them, "Any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and any city or house divided against itself will not stand." That's Matthew 12:22-25. Now, this verse is displayed in a powerful way when the platoon becomes divided. Some of them get on Elias' side, some of them get on Barnes' side, okay? And the division is polarizing. I just learned that the word platoon comes from the word Platone, or Platon, which means small ball. Interesting. I wish I had a ball or some kind of sphere on here. I don't have one. Is there one behind me? I can't see. No. But of course, there's quite a bit of strength in just a small ball. I'm thinking of like a softball, real solid. And then if you were just to cut it in half, zoom, right in half, what would you do with those 2 pieces? The usefulness is cut in half, okay? Of course, a ball itself, has so many functions and so many purposes, but half of it needs the other half. You need completion, okay? And indeed, the platoon in this film, they really needed completion. Because if they didn't have each other, they were going to die. And indeed, that's part of what we see in the film, is the risk they run upon themselves because they are divided in their opinions of things that are happening in the film. It reflected back again how true this is during these times when there's such division. And even people of the same nationality, of course, and the same faith are standing with their backs totally turned to one another. And that small ball feels cut in half, and we realize we need the other to be complete, but there's such a sense of division and a lack of will to reconcile that will we ever be as strong as we ought to be? Will we ever be as effective as this platoon was trained to be? They were made to be strong because of their unity, okay? Willem Dafoe even said, you know, that the whole platoon, went through 2 weeks of intensive training with Captain Dale Dye. We'll talk more about him later on in another film. And it created such a camaraderie among the actors. So when they actually got to shoot the film, they felt like they were a unit, that they were all together. But of course, that's also why they were able to act out and dramatize the division so well, because they knew and experienced both ends. It's a strong word, that of remaining unified and uniform in our presentation, in our speech, and especially for members of the church. And I think that's where Jesus is definitely speaking to us. You've probably stood on different sides of things like this before. Remember, the crowds are amazed. They're just in shock, thinking, this is not really happening. This is him. This is what we've been waiting for. But then the Pharisees, the learned men, sit back and scratch their beards and say, what do you think? And they say whatever they're going to say. We think that he is from the devil. You know, they try to reason. They employ logic. You know, they can't believe the wonder. They can't believe the miracle, and so they want to believe something that's a bit more concrete in their hands. I'm sure that you and I have both stood on that side of different things before. Not that one side is necessarily worse than the other. That's why we're a complete person, because we have both sides in us, the discerning and the wondersome and the awesome, struck with awe, struck with wonder, but also curious and inquisitive and wanting to learn. But Jesus calls for both of those sides to be brought together, certainly in ourselves, so that the house of the self will not fall apart. And he certainly asks for that and is really calling for that in our communal life, in our communal world, that we bring both sides together. And certainly as we try to figure out some of the great conflicts, not only in our faith, but in our country and in our world, as we move together during these difficult times. There's so much to say, certainly about this movie, but that's what rings home for me. If you guys saw something different in this movie, why don't you let me know in the comment section below? Or let me know if you liked it at all. Do you think it deserves to be on the AFI Top 100? And what do you think those other Vietnam War films are going to be? Don't look. Don't cheat. Look at the list. I know you want to. Don't do it. I'm sure you can guess. Anyway, that's number 86, Platoon, on the AFI Top 100. Number 85, hopefully coming very soon. Thank you truly, my friends, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you care to, okay? Would be great to have you along as we continue up the AFI Top 100. I got a couple extra subs this last week, people I don't think I know. And so, welcome to those who have clicked on the subscribe button. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you guys watching. Share the videos if you want. Facebook and LinkedIn and MySpace and Google Plus and YouTube, of course. Anyway, thanks so much, my friends. Take care. Bye. Get this mouse. All right.